Hey, everybody.
Hello.
This is our introductory episode or minisode introducing y'all to who we are, what we're into, how we got into horror, why we're obsessed with it, and why we made this podcast.
Yeah, which the podcast name is Streaming with the Lights On. My name is Becca.
And I'm Brian.
I don't know, do we classify ourselves as like best friends or are we just really good friends?
We're just really good friends.
Oh wow, I was gonna go with best friends, so I guess fuck me right away then. Um,
No, I don't believe in the term best friend because we've got, our own special connection, and Becca and I definitely have one that I don't have with other friends.
right, and our connection is a lot horror.
It's a lot. It's not all just the horror, but it is a good bit. It's a good
Yeah,
bit.
we went to college together, and I did not like him for a long time, and yeah, luckily I've moved past it.
I don't think it was getting past who I was to get to like me. I think I changed, and we didn't really end up trying to be friends until we both separately ended up moving from Ohio to New Orleans.
Yes.
And somehow, some way, we started watching spooky movies at her apartment.
Yeah. I don't remember how that happened, but I'm very glad it did.
Yes.
And we both live pretty far apart now. You're down in Georgia, and
Yep.
I'm up in Ohio again. God knows why. Um, and when we moved, or when I moved back to Ohio, we became very good at continuing to watch horror movies and have phone conversations just talking about horror movies. And we have done that for I don't know how many years now.
Yeah, I remember being outside of a coffee shop here in Atlanta last year, and us.
You just full on located yourself to everybody.
Well, I mean, I'm in Atlanta. Good luck finding me if you want to do that. I remember us chatting on the phone and just thinking, if we talk this much about horror movies, we should just record ourselves for everyone to listen to us.
And you brought it up to me, and I was definitely more hesitant
Yes.
about it because I will say that I am not the biggest fan of movie critics. Some people don't do it on purpose and they're not doing it to try and influence anybody's opinion. But I'm somebody that can be easily influenced um, for movies in terms of, especially people that I respect, like their opinions. So I'm just not a fan of people telling other people whether or not that they would like a movie because I think that it's a very individual experience and everybody has lived very different lives from each other. So something that I like isn't going to be something that you like, and it doesn't make it good or bad.
Right.
It's just different. So I was a lot more hesitant at the idea of starting a podcast where we talk about what we think about movies that we watch. But I got on board.
I'm glad you did.
I don't come from a family that loves horror. I got my little brother into it, probably against his will. But my parents are not horror fans. My older sister is not a horror fan. So I don't really know where my love of messing myself up intellectually comes from. But that's another question for probably somebody that I'd have to pay to find out. Um, but I think one of my earliest experiences with horror, they used to do Stephen King Sunday movies on USA
Oh,
way, way back in the day. I don't know if you remember these.
I never heard of that.
But and obviously it wasn't something that was on in my household, but one of my childhood friends, I would go over to her place and her mom would always have it on in the background.
Oh.
And that's how I saw I saw 5 minutes of it when I was way too young, and I saw the head in the refrigerator scene,
Oh,
which
God.
again, not great to see at a young age, but I think the one that really messed me up the most was I want to say like the very end of The Shining. And I remember riding my bike home being absolutely terrified that like Jack Nicholson was going to jump out of a bush and stab me. And then strangely enough, The Shining was the first adult book that I chose to read. And so I think that was my initial kind of being thrown into the horror genre. Um, yeah, so I started out with Stephen King, and I definitely haven't looked back, and I've terrified myself a lot with this love of mine, and I can't stop it. So, what about you? Why do you like horror from a young age? I don't, that was a messed up question, but
It's okay.
you know where I was going with that.
We'll fix it in post.
There's no fixing that.
I mean, I probably have quite a handful of good memories from being scared stupid, but one of my earliest experiences with horror or being scared in a movie is actually not a horror movie.
Oh.
It was a live action Disney movie.
Oh, can I guess? Can I guess?
Sure, go for it.
Was it Return to Oz?
No, but good guess.
Oh, damn it.
It's one that not many people know of, or if
Was it a Disney Channel movie or was it just a Disney movie?
it was a Disney movie,
Okay.
and it had Sean Connery in it,
Oh.
and it was when he was very young, so not James Bond yet, and is called Darby O'Gill and the Little People,
Okay.
and it was an Irish movie.
Is it currently available to stream on Disney Plus?
That is a great question. My guess would be yes.
I'll check. You keep talking. I'll check for the audience.
Okay. Um, so the reason that I say this is an early memory for me is because despite having its cute moments and some musical numbers here and there, it deals with a lot of Irish folklore. One of which is the banshee, and the banshee terrified me.
Interesting.
Like I was probably 6, and I don't think my mom or dad probably thought about like how scary that would be. But like it is legit a pretty spooky effect they do to implement the banshee, this ghostly figure in this movie. And when the banshee comes and like flies up to the camera with this horrifying face, I remember hiding in the covers. But I got a thrill out of it. So
it is on Disney Plus if anybody wants to experience that.
yes, yeah, it's on Disney Plus. And I think that curiosity for horror festered with help from my dad, because my dad was a fan of horror movies. So growing up with him, he'd introduce me to a lot that he grew up with. He passed away in 2014, but we have a lot of good memories of watching spooky movies. He was always excited to watch one. But I gotta say, if I were to pick one horror movie that I have an early memory of and that really impacted me, it would have to be The Sixth Sense.
Classic.
Because I think I was 12, and this neighbor kid actually brought me to the movie theater, and we snuck in. And at one point, he got up and had to leave for a bit, so I was sitting by myself. And I was so scared of a scene, like many scenes in the movie, where Haley Joel Osment's about to see a ghost in his house, that I didn't cover my face, but I like froze, and I just looked off from the theater screen to like a corner and just like stared there while I was in my peripheral vision because I was too terrified to look at the screen.
Certainly have done that, and not when I was 12, probably a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess for whatever weird reason, I really enjoyed the sensation I got out of being scared, and here we are.
It's funny because I remember being too scared, even watching certain trailers on TV. And I'm not sure when it switched because it did change at one point because I did spend a lot of my young teen years going to the movies every weekend, where
Yeah.
definitely saw The Ring at a advanced screening,
Uh-huh.
and I remember seeing The Grudge in theaters, and that fucked me up real bad. So yeah, I'm not sure when it's went from something that terrified me to something that I sought out. But I will say that it's definitely gotten a lot worse over the years to the point where I found myself that I haven't watched all of the new releases that aren't horror movies sometimes. Despite being a lover of film, all kinds of film, I reach for horror movies over, a lot of other movies. I used to love romantic comedies when I was a lot younger. And I definitely still will reach towards a horror movie over a romantic comedy most days of the week. So it's something that has only grown with age with me, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, probably unfortunately in the eyes of my parents, but fortunately, for me, because I love it. So,
Yeah. Well, and hopefully all our listeners are just as messed up as we are, and that's why they're here. So,
uh, yeah.
so what is either your first or favorite memory, or both, of horror movie experience that you and I had together?
Well, I actually watched this movie this past weekend, and I think about the first time I watched it every single time I watch it because, your brain does that. But I watched the first Conjuring movie,
Mm.
and I don't know if it was the first. I feel like it was the first horror movie that I watched at your place in New Orleans. I feel like it was.
Yeah.
Because I remember you had obtained a copy of the movie prior to its release on DVD.
Yes.
And the only copy that you had Chinese subtitles. I remember that very clearly. I also remember driving home at like 2 a.m., being terrified that there were going to be hands clapping from the back seat. So yeah, that it was definitely the first one that I really think I remember. They're one of the first ones that I remember, and I know it's not your favorite memory because you're going to talk about your favorite memory, but that's the first one that I think of.
That was a good one. I didn't forget about it, but I just hadn't thought of that until you said it. And I'm like, oh, I remember that. So
Yeah,
that was a good
Chinese
one.
subtitles and all.
Yes. So mine is a memory of watching a movie at your apartment.
I'm not excited for this. I don't want to talk about this, and I'm not excited for it. And
That's why it's my favorite memory.
outside of our joint favorite film, Stitches.
Yes.
Outside
Yeah.
of Stitches, obviously.
Yeah. We should clarify for those who might give this a listen first. Our favorite, collectively favorite movie. It's not my
Yes.
favorite horror movie, but
Yeah, it's our favorite horror movie. It's by far my favorite horror film experience that I've had as well. But yeah, is Stitches on a little tiny TV in my apartment in New Orleans, and we're not. I don't think we should go deep into it because eventually we're gonna do a Stitches episode.
yes.
But that's our favorite. But continue on with the one that you like to think of that embarrasses me to no end.
One of my favorite memories of our horror experience together has to be when I came to your place in New Orleans and we rented a couple movies, and one of them
From the library.
from the library. Thank you. We rented
Yes.
a couple movies from the library, and one of them was this Japanese horror film called House.
Let me
And
preface that I told you about this movie because I kept seeing stills of it from Tumblr, and the the stills I get when something really freaks me out, I go into what Brian has called a nope mode, where I just say nope. I can't. It freaks me out. Nope. And just the stills from House, which I have since learned more about this movie and I have more respect for. If you have seen this movie, you'll probably understand. But just the stills from that movie put me into like maximum nope mode. Like I just was freaked out and I made the mistake of telling you. Continue with your story. I just wanted to add that little preface.
yeah, I'm actually looking at stills while we talk about it. This movie's ridiculous.
Fucking movie.
So yeah, this is a very trippy, surreal kind of movie. I think there's some definite intentional humor in it, so I would say it's partially a horror comedy, but it's got a very specific personality that Eastern audiences would probably get way more than you or I would.
Well, and there's a lot of deeper meaning that I learned about later behind the movie, and it made
Right.
more sense. It was just
Well, let me rewind a bit and give my story. So my favorite horror experience with Becca has to be the time at her apartment in New Orleans. We watched horror movies and rented them from the library, and one of them is House, Japanese horror movie, very stylistic, very far out. Great movie, not what either of us were expecting when we put the DVD in. And my joy of this memory is partially the movie itself and partially watching Becca's reaction to the movie.
I remember saying, I don't want to watch this multiple times before we watched it.
Yeah. To this day, I still enjoy just watching a little gif of the floating ghost head that just floats out of a well and bites a girl in the ass. And it's just so strange.
And I don't know what it is. I can't. When I get into nope mode, I don't get words. I just get nope. So that's what that movie brings me, is into nope mode. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome. So yeah, that's my favorite Becca and I horror experience.
Yeah, so this is just basically going to be a podcast where we watch a movie that is available on a streaming service, because it's called Streaming with the Lights On, and then we just talk about it. That's kind of it. And we welcome any recommendations that anybody listening might give us for horror movies they would like to hear us talk about. If you want to try and make me go into nope mode, it's a lot harder these days than it was back when I watched House.
You've built up a tolerance for nope.
I have, luckily for me, because I live alone. So it's really not great to get to the point where you're so freaked out that you can't move, which has happened.
Like we said, I tossed around the idea of us starting a podcast just because we enjoyed talking about the subject so much, but we weren't really sure where to take it because, we know that there are plenty of podcasts out there that discuss, review movies that they enjoy, but we figured that focusing on what's streaming and available is kind of cool because we know that not all our listeners will have every streaming service. So we try to mix it up when we can. And we figured, especially with the pandemic having been what it is, a lot of us are indoors. A lot of us don't have a lot to do. So if you're going to listen to a podcast, might as well make us your company while you check out some cool, spooky stuff that's streaming.
Right. And as a horror fan who seeks out stuff on streaming, it can be kind of hard to find exactly what you're looking for. So we wanted to make it easy to find out what's currently, available, or what's just become available on certain streaming services, because it changes so often. And you might see something one week and then it's gone the next week. So I just wanted to offer that service because I think it's valuable for somebody to tell me what's coming, so that I can, if there's something coming out that I want to watch, then I can know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, and we should preface, we both have degrees in film. We're going to try and not be pretentious about it. Because I know when you hear that, it can kind of come off as we know it all, and we definitely do not know it all. I mean, we took a horror film course, but we don't know it all. Yeah, so we come from that background, both of us. Brian more on the production side of things, and I was more on the critical theory side of things. So I just wanted to add that in there. That's our first episode.
Yeah, so we hope y'all enjoy this and that y'all want to stick around and check out some spooky streaming movies. And yeah.
Okay, we'll edit out where I said this is the first episode because I'm dumb.
Well, I mean, it could be.